You know how some people just have that look in their eyes, that twitchy, holier-than-thou glare that makes you instinctively brace for nonsense? Yeah, that's exactly what I saw walking up my driveway on what should have been a calm Sunday afternoon. I was minding my own business, porch swing creaking, iced tea sweating in my hand, finally exhaling after a brutal week at work, when I saw her. Marla, clipboard queen of Briarwood Estates, HOA committee member, self-appointed guardian of mailbox height regulations and trash can placement policies. Now, I'd had a few run-ins with her before minor stuff, really. She once left a citation on my front step because my porch light wasn't HOA-approved wattage, whatever that means. I mostly ignored her. Figured she'd burn out eventually. Power trips like hers don't usually last. But this time, something felt different. She wasn't just strolling past pretending to pick up dog poop while taking photos of my flower beds. No, she had a mission. She was coming straight at me like a mall cop on Black Friday. "Thomas," she said, her voice soaked in artificial authority, "we need to talk about your yard." I raised an eyebrow, slow and calm, still holding my tea. "Afternoon, Marla. Something wrong with the grass growing in the wrong direction again." She didn't even flinch. "This is serious. Your landscaping violates Article 9, Section B of the HOA's VY Sewell Uniformity Standards." Now, I could have laughed. I really could have. But I just leaned forward, set my glass on the table beside me, and stood up. Not aggressive, just tired. "Marla," I said, "my lawn's the same it's been for 5 years. What's this really about?" She tightened her grip on her clipboard, like it gave her superpowers. "This isn't up for discussion. If you don't correct the violations by end of day, we'll be forced to escalate." And there it was, that word, escalate. The HOA's favorite threat. I tilted my head. "Escalate? You gonna call in the lawn SWAT team?" She didn't blink. Just said, "If necessary. We have HOA enforcement officers." I stared at her for a second, trying to process whether I'd just entered an episode of Saw the Twilight Zone. Saw? "You mean, pretend police?" "They are authorized representatives," she snapped, clearly insulted by my tone. I chuckled. I couldn't help it. "Authorized by who?" "Your monthly newsletter." Her nostrils flared. "You've left us no choice. Consider this your final warning." And with that, she stormed off, high heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown timer. I stood there a moment, watching her leave, trying to decide if this was one of those stupid stories you laugh about later, or one of those stupid stories that turns into something bigger. Spoiler alert, it was the second one. That evening, just as I was finishing dinner, I heard a knock on the door. It wasn't your regular neighborly knock either. It was aggressive, sharp, the kind that says, "Saw, I'm important, and you're about to find out why." Saw. I opened the door to find 2 men standing there in black polos with the HOA logo stitched over their hearts. Black tactical boots, mirrored sunglasses, like a dollar store version of law enforcement. "Mr. Cole?" the taller one asked. "Depends who's asking." "We're with Briarwood HOA Enforcement DVY Shown," he said, like it actually meant something. "We're here to discuss your noncompliance with community standards." I blinked. "You serious?" They both showed me laminated ID cards that looked like they'd been printed at Office Depot and run through a laminator by someone's nephew. "This isn't optional," the shorter one added. "Step outside, sir." Now, something you should know about me: I'm not a man who likes to be pushed. I've spent years working in federal security operations. I'm used to people trying to bluff their way into power. But these two? They had no idea who they were trying to intimidate. I gave them both a slow look, stepped back inside, and came back with my own ID. I held it up, clear and steady. "I'm Thomas Cole, Assistant Director of the Bureau of Federal Investigation." I let that sit in the air like a lightning strike. Both men froze. "I've got enough federal jurisdiction to have you both cuffed and questioned for impersonating law enforcement. You're on my property, threatening me, and acting under the false pretense of authority that doesn't legally exist." The shorter guy's mouth actually opened and closed like a fish. The taller one stammered, We were just following HOA protocol, which has no legal authority, I said, my voice colder now. Get off my porch before I call in real backup. They backed away fast. No arguments. No protests. Just panicked retreat and a lot of awkward eye contact with their shoelaces. As they left, I stepped outside and spotted Marla watching from across the street, arms folded like a cartoon VY lane. I walked straight toward her. She didn't move. What the hell was that, Marla? She shrugged, smug. I warned you, Thomas. We have procedures. I stepped close enough that she realized this wasn't a game anymore. You sent fake cops to my door, I said, calm but direct. That's impersonation, that's harassment, and if you think you're untouchable because you sit on a volunteer committee, you are dangerously mistaken. She scoffed. You can't scare me. I didn't blink. That's the difference between us. I don't have to. Her face faltered, just for a second, but I saw it had flicker of fear behind the arrogance. The moment she realized the house of cards she built was about to come crashing down. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I just walked away. But the next morning, I started making calls. First, I contacted the HOA board. Explained what happened. Sent them the footage from my security cam. And let's just say, some of them were very interested in distancing themselves from what Marla had done. Then I called the city. Filed a complaint. Turns out HOA boards, even in their most obnoxious forms, are still subject to municipal oversight. Impersonating officers? Big deal. Sending people to act like law enforcement? Even bigger. By the end of the week, the HOA enforcement division had been disbanded. The board voted to suspend Marla pending investigation. I heard whispers that some of the other neighbors' people she'd harassed about lawn chairs and paint colors started submitting their own complaints. But that wasn't enough. I documented everything. Filed a formal incident report. Got legal documentation pro-VYing Marla's overreach and the impersonation stunt. And once the ball got rolling, she couldn't stop it. She resigned quietly 2 weeks later. No apology. No explanation. Just disappeared into her house and started keeping her blinds drawn like the rest of us were going to march up with pitchforks. So I pushed for a policy change. Our HOA now has bylaws forbidding any enforcement officers, real or imagined. All citations must be submitted in writing and reviewed by the entire board before they can be issued. Transparency, accountability, those became the new buzzwords. And for once, they weren't just empty phrases. The neighborhood changed after that. People started chatting again in porches, in driveways. They weren't afraid of stepping an inch out of line. The tension lifted, and folks started looking out for each other, not spying on each other. I still see Marla now and then. She avoids eye contact, tries to blend in. It's strange how someone can go from feared tyrant to background extra in their own story. And maybe that's enough punishment. Or maybe it isn't. All I know is, don't ever mistake quiet for weakness. Because sometimes, the guy drinking tea on the porch, he's got a badge in his pocket and a whole lot of leverage you never saw coming. So tell me, have you ever dealt with a power-hungry neighbor like Marla? Someone who thought the HOA turned them into royalty? Drop your story in the comments. Let's talk about what really keeps a community safe, rules or respect. And if this reminded you of someone you know, go ahead, share it with them. Maybe it'll save them from picking the wrong porch to mess with.